Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Infacto Daily. It's the daily podcast where we talk about AI, tech, finance, news, and tie it into how your small business can benefit from it. Dylan is out traveling still. Man, 3 days of traveling is crazy. But that means I'm doing this episode solo. So that means it's going to be finance related because I love finance. So this episode, I wanted to talk about this article I saw about Anthropic. You might know them as that AI company that has Claude. And anyways, they released 10 new AI agents last week, specifically for the finance space. So let's just dive into this. Let's look through them and see what these agents do. And I kind of wanted to have this mindset of when I see stuff like this, I think it's super interesting. And I know Anthropic is really good at what they do. But it kind of gives me ideas like I can go create my own agent that does this using a cheaper model, perhaps. And maybe it gets, the job done 90% of the way as Anthropic's. So when you listen to this, you can think about using, these agents. You can pay for them, implement them, but also just generate your own ideas on what you need and maybe how this agent you can morph it into what you need specifically. So even though these are finance specific, maybe you can tweak them a little bit to get them to meet your criteria. So just something to consider. So let's just dive into this. I think I'm just going to go through the 10 agents one by one and kind of talk about them. Some of them are going to lead to more conversation. Some are just kind of simple. It does this. So yeah, let's get into it. On May 5th, Anthropic released 10 financial agents to help in the finance sector. They were, targeting software developers, software companies. Primarily, that was their kind of target. I'm just going to say target because of the way they are going at it. But with Claude Code, Claude Cowork, all these products they've released, it's really been to automate a lot of the software engineering jobs. And it looks like they're kind of shifting their focus towards finance, which is interesting. So the first agent we're going to look at is the pitch builder, and it just drafts a client deck, creates a list of companies and pulls comps. So it compares the finances across these. So this is more of a research agent. I think a lot of these are going to be I'm not going to say replace, I'm going to say to help the analyst role at big banks, investment firms. It's going to be like giving them a junior analyst. So the second one is a meeting preparer. So, that's pretty straightforward. It, compiles the books before a meeting so the banker doesn't have to spend the entire evening beforehand reading about it. They can just get a summary, which hopefully, they still do their research and are prepared for the meetings, but we'll see. Then there's the third one is an earnings reviewer. So this is going to be those agents that run as soon as a company releases their quarterly earnings statements. It's going to immediately dig through that, pull out all the changes, and write, summaries. This is kind of the trend in investing towards algorithms and automated trading. A human's never going to have time to read an earnings report and make a decision on it before Wall Street and every other algorithmic trader has already traded on it. So I think this could lead to, increased volatility in the markets around earnings specifically, just because of different ways that the agents interpret these earnings and immediately trade off them. So it's interesting. There's also number 4 is the model builder. So this is going to build out the discounted cash flows and other financial models for the analyst. I think this makes sense. I've heard people say the best part about these models, it's not necessarily when it's done and you look at the numbers, it's the research that you spend on a company while you're building out the model, because it forces you to dive into their financial statements and really understand the trends and where they're spending money and making money. So I do worry a bit that this is going to lead to more surface level understanding of companies' financials, kind of like in software development. You don't have to know the code anymore to get a product built, but it seems like to get, a quality product built with a deepness to it that doesn't, let's say that it's not as fragile, knowing the code, knowing the architecture goes so far. So I'm curious to see on this if this is that much of a benefit for the analysts, or if we still see that when people look at when they build these models manually if they get a deeper understanding. And then number 5 is a market researcher. Scans the market, looks at news, summarizes trends for a specific sector. I feel like these are, pretty basic agents. It's kind of hard to see what is Anthropic doing that is so special that you couldn't just hook up, the Claude API to your own agent, open code or whatever, and give it some prompts. But that's kind of the front office. That's the research and the client coverage agents. The next group is kind of more of the back office. So these are more aimed at accounting, auditing, and compliance. Kind of the slow, repetitive, labor-intensive tasks. So number 6 is the valuation reviewer. So it checks, existing valuations against the methodology and external data to see if they hold up. So kind of automating the value of companies. Does this company deserve to be valued at what it is based on all this external data? That's pretty cool. That's interesting. I kind of want to build my own version of this one. Just see. Because if you could catch, a company that has gone quite undervalued relative to the other, the comps, the comparable companies around it, that would be, could be a good investing opportunity perhaps. Number 7 is the general ledger reconciler. So that reconciles accounts and it runs the net asset value calculations automatically. I don't know. That sounds so boring. So let's move on. Oh, these just get more boring, honestly. Number 8 is the month-end closer. And it just runs through a close checklist, pairs the journal entries, and gets ready to shut the books for the month. This is why I could never be an accountant, falling asleep reading about this. But I could see that being obviously very beneficial if you are an accountant or in that field, to just kind of have that automation of those repetitive month-end tasks. So that'll be nice. We also have number 9 is the statement auditor, and it reviews financial statements to look for discrepancies or weird patterns. That's interesting. That sounds more like looking for fraud, perhaps, or anomalies. If a company normally doesn't have any revenue in a certain field, but then they suddenly do, this would kind of flag it instantly. And then maybe you could summarize all of the data around it to try to paint a picture on why. So that's interesting. That'll be cool to see. And the final one, number 10, is a KYC, which is Know Your Customer Screener. So basically it automates background checks and risk screening process for new clients. It makes sense. Someone wants a loan, you're going to just run this AI on them real quick, make sure they're a good customer. So yeah, that's the 10 agents. Sorry, something just fell off my shelf. Yeah, so these aren't just chat prompts. Obviously, they're agents. So these are going to be running autonomously in the background. So you could just have them set up every time a new statement comes in, the statement auditor automatically runs. So you'll know before you even know you have a new statement, it's going to have already ran all the checks on it. So this is going to really speed up financial the whole field, research, auditing, accounting. It's going to speed up all of that. This is kind of cool. It's built into Microsoft, so it ships with Microsoft 365. So like the model builder, the one that builds out your financial models, like the discounted cash flow, that's going to just be in Excel already in the ribbon. So you just click the button. Or the pitch builder, it's going to be in PowerPoint. So Anthropic's taking its tools, putting them right into, the other tools that people are already using. So that's it for this article. I think this is really interesting. I can see, similar to what we've been seeing in the software industry, teams get much smaller. One person kind of gets to own more of the job now because they're not having to spend as much time on one specific part of it. So, if you are an analyst, maybe you get to do all of it rather than just reviewing earnings. You get to also start building the models, research the entire market sector. Or, if you don't work in finance, but you're interested, you're looking for investments or, other opportunities like that, you can still use these agents for your personal research and try to get a better understanding of companies and look for opportunities in the markets. The accounting ones I could see being a big benefit to small businesses to kind of do their own, reconciling their ledger and month-end closing, stuff like that. Statement auditor, you could, audit statements from your suppliers. I feel like all these, kind of what I said at the beginning, is this is targeted towards the big finance firms, but you can kind of see value in each of these agents for totally unrelated markets. You could run a background check on a potential customer to see if they've ever not paid, a previous company, or run it on, potential employees that you want to hire. So there's just lots of opportunities here. It's interesting to see the direction Anthropic is choosing to go. I feel like they really hit the software industry. They integrated as much as they can into that. Everyone in the software industry knows about Anthropic, and now they're shifting to finance. My prediction is next is going to be healthcare. They're going to start building agents for hospitals and doctors, insurance. I think that's going to be the next one. So if I'm right on that, Dylan, you have to give me a raise. If I'm wrong, I don't know. Good thing you're traveling and you won't see this. So that's it for today's episode. Thank you. This was very interesting, exciting. I like to see where the finance industry goes, and the fact that it is the next target of Anthropic honestly makes me excited. And I like to see the modernization of finance and kind of bring the financial industry into the AI era. So thanks so much for listening today. If you are curious about this AI, if you see an opportunity here, but you're not quite sure where to start, check out infactodigital.com. We specialize in helping small businesses implement AI into their own workflows, or building your own know your customer screener agent. So check out the website. If you enjoyed this episode, just feel free to recommend it to one other person you know that might like it. You don't have to tell everyone, just one person. That's the best way to support the show. So thank you so much. Bye.